Welcome, everyone, to our annual 2024 Northern California IIDA Chapter Pioneers in Design event. This Pioneers in Design is such a wonderful platform for our bold visionaries who come up here on this stage and enlighten us on how they're shaping the world through innovative practices and how they're pushing the boundaries of what is possible and in turn inspiring us to do more and to do it better year after year in the world of design. Today, we will be celebrating the work of Amy Karle, our pioneer.
Her work not only reflects a vision for the future where technology supports and enhances creativity and innovation, and it also her work actually participates in the creation of that future and actually imagining a positive outcome for this amazing stuff. Amy Karle's work is not only what she has created, but it's the pathways that she illuminates for future generations, pathways where technology serves creativity, where innovation fosters community, and where design is intrinsically linked to enhancing human potential. Please honor me in welcoming Amy Karle, a true pioneer in design, whose visionary work continues to inspire our understanding of how design can enable the future.
What?
Imagine a world where every facet of our existence, from the cells in our bodies to the cities we inhabit, is intentionally designed, where humanity, nature, and technology seamlessly merge and co-design to evolve together. Here, design and technology not only coexist, they actively collaborate to support nature and humanity to thrive. This is my vision for the future. Technology is advancing much faster than we can grasp. It seems that every single day a new technology emerges that can change humanity and change our world and redefine our future. The fusions of machines, data, and biological systems is reshaping our lives, reshaping our world, and reshaping our future in ways that we really can't comprehend. But this isn't something that has to passively happen to us. What if our next evolutionary step is something that we actually consciously design? We're at this pivotal moment where humanity, nature, and technology are converging, if we like it or not. I study and make work at this critical intersection that can define our future. My work probes who we could become as a result of our emerging and exponential technologies, questioning the potential impacts on our lives and on our future. My intention is that in researching, developing, and creating my work, I'm actually pushing the vision, the technology, and the path forward for a healthier future. I'm envisioning the future while I'm working, and I'm working through these tools and workflows to try to get there. And when I do this, when any of us work in this way, we see this whole range of implications, from dangers to possibilities. And once we see that we have the power to do something about it. We can design and work towards the preferred future that we want and the preferred outcomes that we want. And I not only work with these tools to explore living systems and life processes as subjects, I'm actually researching, questioning, and working through the impacts on our world and on our lives, on the actual living systems that it impacts. I work across many different disciplines and tool sets, and as our technology progresses, these different categories unify more and more. Likewise, as we further integrate with technology, the boundaries of what's separate or what's artificial and natural begin to assimilate and disappear. My work is very technical, but it's also very personal. I was born with a life-threatening birth defect, and this really inspires all of the work that I do. I had many experimental surgeries until one worked when I was a teenager. I was always interested in the latest medical technology and the latest science that would heal me. But also in this process, I became very acutely aware of the human condition because of the body. the limitations of the body, the pain and suffering from the body, the suffering that occurs when you feel like you're born into a body that doesn't allow you to express who you actually are. And my work isn't just about personal healing or healing the physical form. It's about a deep search of what it means to be human and what it means to be alive, and the possibility of transforming our very existence, of elevating that, of making us better humans, making a better future. Some of exploring what it means to be human and what it means to be alive is biological in nature. Like if a heart is beating or if we're breathing, we can measure those things. I'm also interested in this much larger picture of what it means to be human and what it means to be alive that we can't measure. This dynamic internal landscape of thought, emotion, and intuition that's going on inside of us all the time. We can't necessarily measure it, but it very much makes us alive and it very much makes us human. And I'm also looking at how our technologies could affect these dimensions of existence as well, not just those we can scientifically measure. This piece is biofeedback artwork. It's durational performance where I laid meditating connected to a Sandine image processor to output video and sound over periods of 5 to 8 hours. And I was trying to illuminate that even when we're perfectly still, there is all of this happening inside of us, all of this internal landscape going on. And my work navigates this convergence of our organic selves with technological and synthetic possibilities. With the development of our exponential technologies, including artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, implants, bionics, 3D printing, bioprinting, synthetic biology, genetics, and this overall merging of infotech and biotech, the concept of life itself has truly been expanded. This piece is regenerative reliquary. This is 3D printed, generatively designed scaffolds for stem cell culture into bone. What that means is that this scaffold of a hand design can accept human stem cells from a living human donor and grow into the form. And over time, that initial hand design that looks yellow now disintegrates, leaving only a patient's genetic material. So medically, this considers people who need bone grafts or transplants and those with limb differences. And this way, if this was to be medically implanted as a replacement part, it could potentially have a lower risk of rejection because someone's own genetic material was used. So this is really exciting medically. But it also encourages us to consider what we can design and create and what would be smart to grow out of living materials. We're now at this very exciting time where we don't have to make things out of inanimate objects. We can actually grow things into form. What would be smart to make for inside and outside of the body? And what are the ramifications of that? And this is when things get really interesting. To think that we can use our technologies and couple it with this intelligence of life to create something unlike anything we've ever been able to make before, to heal and enhance the bodies in ways that were never possible before. I can envision this factory of the future where a single cell is used for the entire workflow to make many different things. It wouldn't have to be the same thing over and over. It could be various replacement parts, as well as new enhancements that are unlike anything that we've ever seen before. We can grow things for outside of the body too. Like what if our technology was made out of reprogrammable cells? And what if they were decentralized? What if we can take those cells and put them into our bodies or put them into nature? That's just one idea of something that we can make. Drawing inspiration from the wisdom, elegance, and adaptability of natural systems, my work collaborates with cellular life, allowing these natural systems to teach us and guide us. I'm not trying to get the cells to do something. I'm trying to collaborate with them and let them teach me. I'm not just trying to mimic nature, but I'm trying to engage it as this co-creator, employing its principles to foster innovation and sustainability, to work together on this. And also because it's just much smarter than we are. Nature's so much smarter than we are. It's the most elegant blueprint. We have so much to learn from natural life and processes. It's this design beyond our understanding. And working with nature can't be taken lightly. There's serious ramifications of using natural and living systems and genetic materials with consequences that we really can't foresee. And I run into this all the time with my work. It also brings up a lot of very philosophical questions as well. When we were making this piece, the scientists that I was working with suggested that we use bone cancer cells because the bone cancer cells are very robust. And if they couldn't thrive on this scaffold, then stem cells, which are much more fragile, definitely couldn't survive. My immediate response was no way, I'm not using cancer cells. My mother died of ovarian cancer very young. She was a scientist, and when I make this kind of work, I feel her very present with me. So my natural response was no. But I trust the scientists I work with, and I went home and I started thinking about this, and I was thinking, what if I had my mother's bone cancer cells? And what if I could grow those on this piece? What does that mean? She's not alive with us anymore, but what if I can grow those cells? We can measure that they're alive scientifically, but it's not the same as having her here with us. It raises these very interesting questions about what it means to be alive and other issues as well, like rights to life and death. Most human enhancements start with healing in the medical field. In the case of bioprinting, we'd first create organs for those who need transplants and are on the transplant list. There's a desperate need for that. But then the next step, as we start to age, would be to replace out our parts. And this could potentially encourage us to live a longer lifespan than a normal human expectancy. We don't really know. Others would get enhancements for performance purposes. And it's not just about enhancing bodies medically. This is enhancing the very essence of our humanity, of our human experience. It's fundamentally changing who we are. Through exponential technologies, we can explore new terrains of identity and existence and how those can impact our future and evolution. We can actually mimic them in advance and see what can play out in front of us. We have to be very careful and cautious. Human-induced changes can occur much faster than nature, and I'm really concerned about its impacts on our future. These are 6 sculptures based on data from a triceratops and scientific research in de-extinction. Yes, I learned that's a real thing. And this work projects out through machine learning evolutionary system way out into the far future, trying to project out as far into the future as dinosaurs were in deep time, to try to look at what are the potential evolutions that can occur over that time frame. And if we make a change, what would happen? I'm concerned about evolution that natural selection never designed, and we're headed there at absolutely exponential rates. So it's important to focus on who we want to become and how we want to use our design and technology to help us get there. The Heart of Evolution is a biomechanical and biofabricated sculpture that questions our physical and spiritual evolution as we use biotechnology to advance our species. I collaborated with cardiac surgeons to explore how the heart's vasculature could be improved through generative engineering and generative design for less dire consequences in the case of blockage. Heart disease is the leading cause of death, at least in America. This piece was made in a bioelastomer, and then it was articulated with a similar kind of function as a pacemaker. And this is a version I'm working towards bioprinting with human cardiac stem cells that would actually beat. Bioprinting vasculature has many benefits, not just for the heart, but if we can bioprint vasculature, we're one step closer to actually making replacement organs. But this also raises very important questions about the consequences of redesigning the body. And that's ultimately why I chose a heart. The heart is the seat of emotional consciousness. Across many cultures, it's the organ associated with deep emotional feeling, with love and pain and joy. So if we're to switch that out or fabricate it in some way, what would be the implications of that? If we alter this organ, who would we become physically, emotionally, and spiritually? What would be the evolutionary impact? I was with my friend Lisa after she had a lung transplant. And in the recovery house, there was people from all over the world, all different backgrounds, and they all reported the same thing. They felt so different after they had the transplant. They can feel the person who they got the transplant from. And of course, they don't know who that is. I even heard this story about someone who had a bone marrow transplant, and they all of a sudden wanted to smoke. They had this major surgery, they were really sick, and they wanted to smoke. And the doctor said, well, that's probably because the person you got the transplant from was a smoker. So I was thinking about these kinds of questions when I'm making these pieces. If we're going to be redesigning it, how does that impact us? The design and the technical processes of these pieces are very, very complex. But it's nothing compared to the spiritual, philosophical, and ethical questions that arise in doing this kind of work. Ultimately, I'm interested in how we can integrate our technology to heal and enhance us, to empower us. When we think about biotechnologies and artificial intelligence, many people see that as something outside of ourselves, like a computer or a robot or something that's done in the lab. But I'm trying to imagine how we can integrate it with us, to heal us, to empower us. Like, think for an example of a pacemaker. This is a highly technological device that's implanted into the body. Some of them can even page the doctor. But when we see somebody that has a pacemaker, we don't think of them as a cyborg. We see someone whose life has been saved. I believe that artificial intelligence is not just about the technological, but it's about the biological as well. And we're seeing this more and more as our life sciences and computer sciences merge. Using these tools offers us this unprecedented opportunity to potentially transcend life as we know it. These biodigital organisms engage the implications of artificial life. And I'm trying to tease some reflections on potential futures of evolution across biological, artificial, and hybrid forms. This work explores principles of life by setting the initial conditions and rules for evolution, allowing AI to generate entities with lifelike behaviors like growth, interaction, adaptation. And these really start to illuminate this demarcation between organic and artificial, and the potential for new life forms to engage from digital environments, showing potential trajectories of biotechnological evolution, and showing us great possibilities and opportunities, also inevitably triggering a lot of ethical questions. All of my work is inherently deeply intertwined with ethical and philosophical considerations on the nature of life and intelligence, health and well-being, human and natural rights. It has to be. These are the things I'm working with. You know, in this kind of work, we can't help but see the concerns and also the potentials and the possibilities. But again, when we can see preferred outcomes and a preferred future, then we can actively design and work towards it. I can easily envision a future where our bio and technological intelligences empower and enhance our lives. A future where highly autonomous integrated systems surpass human intelligence across a number of domains, where AI, biotech, and quantum technologies become enmeshed with our bodies and our beings. And as the body and technology come together, the impact on our lives and our future becomes even more pronounced. This makes it crucial for us to be proactive in shaping our technological landscape and really understanding how our technology shapes us, because there is a very important relationship there. It absolutely reshapes us. It reshapes our bodies. It reshapes our thinking. It reshapes our whole lives. These are garments I made based on anatomy, representations of anatomical systems and visual forms. The process I used to create these garments is now used to make scoliosis braces and lightweight breathable casts, actually physically reshaping our bodies. My goal is to continue to investigate what life could look like in the future, how our bodies, our beings, and the natural world can interface with quantum technologies, and what life means in a post-biological world, where we merge with technology to transcend our current limitations. How will we embody ourselves into a machine or show up in a virtual world? Some of us are already doing that in different ways. Probably most of us are. Who will we become when our bodies merge with biotechnology, AI, and quantum technology? How will we live on after our deaths in these realms? My latest installation, Echoes from the Valley of Existence, is an interactive and responsive environment that considers the ways that we live on outside of our bodies, how these bio and digital traces that we leave beyond echo through time and space. Things like all our text messages, our images, our biometrics, like when you go to the airport, our DNA. How do those live on outside of us, and what story do they tell about us? So this installation was really beautiful and engaging when you're in it. But again, this is like what we're leaving in the present moment, how we're interacting. And I really wanted to give people the opportunity to understand that these echoes last much, much longer than the engagement time that we're doing it. And they can even last past our lifetime. So as part of the piece, I gave people the opportunity to leave messages and DNA for the future. And these will be packaged together with the data from the piece and the images from the piece, launched into space and embedded on the moon. So it really forced people to think, what are we leaving for the future? What are we leaving behind, and what is the potential impact through space and time? What's important to leave? Who would find this story, and what would it tell about us? So to me, this piece of artwork really starts with this question. Would you leave a message? Would you leave your DNA? Why or why not? That's the really intriguing part of the work to me. And then out of that piece, this is the current work that's on my desk right now, I was asked to make the cover art for a new iteration of the Golden Record. This is due to launch into space late this year. And this new Golden Archive is this compendium containing vast amounts of data from all over the world in the biosphere, repositories of human knowledge from all over the world in all different cultures, DNA of humans, many plant and animal species, a seed bank, and an AI LLM that's hopefully intended to help communicate with whoever or whatever finds this in the future. And this is interesting to think about. It could be extraterrestrials, future humans, or others. And it's also interesting because it includes DNA. So it's including the actual blueprint to restart some of our world as we know it. How will that impact who finds it? What will be the impact on them for using it? So this is a significant design project on many, many levels, because it's really hard to try to picture who I'm designing this for. And there's significant questions about what should be included or omitted in the depiction and conveying such a message. You know, what are the stories of our planet and humanity that we want to share that's important to share? What's the best of us? How do we convey that? Ultimately, it came down to depicting a clear representation of who is sending this message in from where. I wasn't the only one that determined that, but I was the one that made the artwork. A big part of this challenge is, how could this be understood by beings with potentially no prior knowledge of Earth or human culture? And considering whoever finds this, whatever finds this, might not have human characteristics. Like, they might not have eyes, or they might be far more advanced than us in ways we can't imagine. It just really opens the mind to think about how can we communicate and connect? What's most important to share? And how do we design for an audience that we don't know who they are? But working on such project really enables us to delve deeper into the essence of the ideals that we aspire to share and who we want to show the best of who we are. And when we can envision the ideals, we're much more empowered to design and work towards it. We stand on the brink of a new phase of evolution, where humans do not merely use technology, but we embody it, where technology will shape us as much as we shape it. My vision for the future is one where technology supports us to revolutionize our understanding of ourselves and the world around us, giving rise to new forms of expression, empathy, creativity, connection, and potential, where technology enhances humanity in the natural world rather than diminishes it, where exponential technologies are not just tools, but they're collaborators with the natural world in our journey of designing and creating the world and the future that we want. We won't just arrive at this future, though. We must actively design and create it, co-create it with nature. Thank you for creating it with me.
it's so interesting that like hear what you're doing in kind of today's storytelling culture, because bioengineering, AI, virtual afterlives are typically kind of an apocalyptic tale. But somehow your work has this benevolent, almost spiritual aura. And yet you play with these dark visuals and these kind of dark emotional memes. How does she do this? Like, do you need to have the darkness in order to show the light? And like, you're working on your work. How do you know, like, okay, this is artistically good and it's towards this kind of healing vision as opposed to an evil or destructive one? How do you do that, Amy?
Well, when I make my artwork, it's not of the thinking mind. I've had to really learn how to talk about my work. But it comes from a different place. It doesn't come from the thinking mind. And I'm asking all of these questions while I'm making the work, and it's much more than I could talk about in 20 minutes or even 2 days. And I feel like my artwork is successful when in one moment you could walk by a piece and you get that feeling, all these things that I'm asking, the scary questions that I'm facing, the emotional questions I'm facing, and the hopes as well. That in, just a few seconds of walking by a piece in a museum or engaging it, that you somehow feel that. That's when I feel like the artwork is successful. I think it does need both this light and dark, because those are necessary elements that come with doing this kind of work and asking these questions. But ultimately, I feel hopeful, like being hopeful that we can use these tools and technologies wisely, being hopeful for our future, being hopeful for humanity. That's what keeps me going. So that's where I think that element comes into it.
Yeah, I can feel the hope. So thank you. It's great. When think about how art impacts like this goal of, how as civilization or humanity, going to have this better future. We think about art, it's like influences culture, which maybe influences society, which might, in turn affect fashion or architecture. It's like this chain of events. But your work like totally upsets that order, and you're like screwing around with cells, right? And kind of remaking stuff. And, like you said, it raises all these cultural and spiritual and moral issues. And now on top of that, you're this global traveler. Get these commissions from Japan. It's a different culture than ours. We just came back from Austria. And so I imagine there are radically, or there could be these really different cultural responses to your work. And so, is that true? And then if there are, and you're asked to do a piece in Japan, do you think about also tailoring the project to those sort of cultural anticipations? I don't even know what to call it. So, are the reactions different?
So that was like 10 questions at once.
I know. Sure.
I'll try to work through them, and if I forget something, let me know. Working across cultures is really interesting, right? There's so many different things, and it takes a lot of thoughtfulness to be mindful to not overstep. So kind of the place I always go back to is what is below culture or beyond culture that connects all of us. And that is fundamentally what it means to be human and what we're made of. So in that regard, starting from this cellular level, starting from the body, starting from basic human and natural rights is something we can all relate to. We've all experienced in some way pains and joys around these things, and that transcends culture. So fundamentally, I offer my work to different cultures and see how they respond. And different cultures do respond in different ways. Like the Japanese, for example, are open to speaking about the spiritual meanings as well as the technological much more fluidly in a professional environment than, say, in America with medical talks. where a lot of people get into medicine for these spiritual reasons. They want to help people. They want to save lives. But to talk about it at a medical conference would be seen as unprofessional. Whereas in other cultures, that's more open. Or they might associate things they see with things from their religion or spirituality, which is so beautiful for me to learn about. I mean, I feel like that's more of a gift for me than what I can even give to them. It's also, my work is prompted by the thinking of different cultures. So for the piece Echoes from the Valley of Existence, the interactive piece where you can leave your DNA or text messages, that was made for the Triennale in Sapporo, Japan. And the Triennale, the concept was the last snow, which is like so beautiful, very Japanese. The concept of the last snow of the season or the world or your life. So I was commissioned to make a piece on the future of the last snow 100 years or more from now. And the director said to me, this was my prompt, think about the future of death, life in terms of the last snow. So it was really this cultural prompting that led me to make a piece that was for Japanese. But if we installed it here, it would still be very interesting. And I would be interested to hear how the responses were similar or different. So some of their responses, like for DNA, had to do with their death rituals or their spiritual rituals. And that would be different for us.
Well, you got all 8 questions. Thank you. And in art and design, one typically earns a reputation. Oh, Amy's work is like this, right? And the same with us as designers, right? That can be good, or it can be eliminating, can be a trap. But I imagine avoiding the trap relies on you staying true to you and finding fresh sources of inspiration, and then also that discipline to stay on that vision that maybe you don't even understand. So how do you navigate this thing of reputation and expectation, but keep yourself on track, on Amy's track?
You kind of asked and answered the question altogether already. So thanks, you made it easy for me. But this is something that artists and designers run into a lot, right? We get a signature style. And over time, that signature style becomes more sought after. But we can't grow if we stay in our lane, stay in our comfort zone. So for me, it's always about finding what you really feel passionate about. What do you want to learn about? What do you want to experiment with? What do you want to try? And as you practice, as long as you're like practicing every day, your signature comes through that. But it's by continuing to learn and grow and trying different projects, even if they're totally crazy and bring you to outer space. Or like now I'm getting into quantum technology, which I know very little about, but is just totally blowing my mind. It'll take me a long time to kind of find my voice in that field because there's a lot of learning, but it's not stopping me from learning. So I think, it's about keep growing and you'll show up in that.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question which I don't answer myself, hopefully. I see
good. You did a good job.
Well, thank you. I see that some of your collaborators are here, which is awesome. And, you work with a really kind of really broad set of collaborators. And, each are coming from their own discipline and their own sort of processes and systems. What's it been like to do that? And how do you collectively find your paths, the path to, get stuff done, interesting, good stuff?
I feel that, it first comes from me always wanting to work with people that are smarter than me and like knowing that I'm going to learn something from them. And when you go to a collaboration from that space, you're not so afraid of asking questions and asking for critique because that'll make your work better. So first of all, it's like setting that stage of mutual respect, but also, of course, you need to have the time. Like there's a lot of interesting people that we'd love to work together, but the time isn't right. And what was the rest of the question about how?
Oh, it's just about, yeah. So you talking about how you set the tone, right, and learn from each other. And then are there some like processes you rely on? It's like, okay, this worked in the past, or is it unique?
Every time is unique. And that's actually part of the signature question too, which makes things difficult, but also allows us to keep growing, right? And I think a lot about establishing this collaboration is your personal passion and excitement for it. Right? If you're excited about something, it's like a magnet. And you just start asking people, who do you know that does this? Who can you help? Like, how can I get some help with this? I want to build this crazy thing. How can I do it? And then I have certain other limitations. Like I have 3 kids. So a lot of times it's like, I need to find somebody in the Bay Area. I need to find somebody who, has the funding or won't require that much funding, unfortunately, in a lot of cases. So I have all these like set of requirements. But when you start asking, all of a sudden, like the right person just emerges. So I think, it's that process of believing in yourself and sharing your vision and practicing.
You did talk about what your kind of next is, which is the golden record and all that. Do you have an idea of what's after that?
Yes, I had just started engaging quantum technologies through an artist residency that I started last year, Studio Quantum, where I get to learn from experts in quantum technologies, and it's completely blowing my mind. This idea that quantum technology is based on atoms, and we are based on atoms. Everything around us is based on atoms. So when we evolve into this future, we see how reliant we are on our digital technologies. When we take that next step into quantum technologies, and it's made of the same things of us, how will our world change? How will things be even more fluid than they are now? So this is really opening my mind, and I don't know what'll come of it yet. We'll see. Like I said, it'll take a long time to develop my voice in that field because it takes a long time to learn about these fields.
So interesting. Do we have time for a couple of audience questions? I can't. So can someone that's not blinded by the light?
Maybe we can.
Does anybody have a question out there?
Cell regeneration and using biology as a way to 3D print and such. Has there been thoughts about the human mind? So, for example, Alzheimer's and degenerative diseases. Have you been thinking about how you can use your technology to improve those sort of illnesses?
This has been a question that comes up a lot because some of my earlier work, I briefly showed one of the biofeedback pieces where I was laying, but then I got into neural headsets because people wanted this experience of seeing their own biofeedback. But the meditative one was really difficult. And also I was like getting all kinds of shocks from it and things. It wasn't practical. So I got into these neural headsets when they first came out and these kind of questions started arising. So I haven't worked on it very deeply in that regard. The way that I have been working on it is how can we use our brains and technology to learn, both communicate and learn. So one of the kind of slides I showed, but I didn't explain what it was, I was wearing a neural headset. And I never thought of myself as musically inclined. So over a period of 2 weeks, I wore this neural headset connected to a digital interface to output music and sound representing my brain waves. And over this period of 2 weeks, I started, when I took it off to go out into the world to get food or whatever, I started hearing sounds in the world around me. And then I started dreaming in sounds. And I had never had this experience before, except for like if somebody called my name or a phone rang, but I never had music composure. So in a period of a few weeks, I was able to teach my brain to become more musically inclined. And I still have that experience of dreaming in sounds to today through this technological interface. So I think there could be a lot of applications there. I also started working with these neural headsets and generative AI to output our thoughts into images and text. But I look at that more of conceptual rights and intellectual rights. So that kind of brings us down a different pathway. But thank you for that question. Even though I haven't been working in directly, I think there's a lot to explore there.
Mike is coming.
I think of you as an artist, but I also think of you as a sort of generous polymath who is exploring this space and almost a design scientist who is exploring kind of with the balance between art and design. How did you get there, though? I guess that's my question. Is like, were you at 5 years old? You mentioned some of your own challenges, but were you an artist then? Were you like, how did you get to the place where you are today? Could you tell us a little bit about your journey?
I think I always realized that the way that I communicate best is visually and experientially. The way that I really communicate best is through art, and the way to find some of those paths and solutions was through design. Although I didn't necessarily call it that, but I think when I was about 5, I knew I was going to be an artist, and I still find like the sketches of the human body that look very much like the garments that I made. But my journey was also influenced by my parents, who are biochemists and pharmacists. I grew up in the lab. So I always felt really comfortable in that environment, but I knew that my voice was not through that medium, or not, maybe through the medium, but not through that, that set of constructs from that discipline. I went to college at Alfred University and Cornell University, and at Alfred University, they're one of the top ceramic schools in the world. Very small school otherwise, for ceramic art and ceramic engineering. They train under the Bauhaus philosophy. So this is very art and design, form and function, material science and craft. And that was my kind of formal education that contributed to this. But I also think about a lot of my other life experiences, like my Italian grandmother taught me to crochet from a very young age to teach me math. And everything I made with that was like 3D printing, the thinking of 3D printing. You know, how do I make this 3D form? How do I build as I go? So it's all our life experiences.
Have you considered doing anything that's interactive, that you can actually hold? A lot of the work that I saw was observational, as opposed to something like having the heart put in your hand and feeling the pacemaker, actually experiencing that with your art.
I've done a little bit of playing with that, but not in like the museum setting. So I do some engaging installations, but I do love this. And I have felt this before, where we had this little device where you can hold it to your heart, and then somebody can hold this little haptic device and they feel your heartbeat. It was amazing. Immediately you were connected with them in a way that felt like you knew them for a long time. So this is something that I'm excited to do. Also, the neural headset piece with the sound, a piece that is kind of always in my proposal portfolio for museums when they ask for new work, is that I'd like to make some kind of symphony where people can come together, try the neural headset, be connected to, say, a certain instrument, and then you can hear what you sound like alone, or when you sound like sitting next to someone that also has the headset on. So there's a number of pieces that I have that are engaging, or future works too. So thank you for that question. I think that's really the next level of having these experiences, which is so important.
Okay, maybe one more. Yeah, all the way up there.
Is this okay? I think sounds are gone. What would you say to a skeptic, especially in the realm of like bioengineering as being involved in your body, and further kind of pushing that forward of kind of like what connections and that kind of stuff?
I would say to please be skeptical. Please continue to be skeptical and give resistance, because a lot of times the technology is pushed forward very fast. Even through FDA regulations and stuff, which seem like forever, this is still very fast. And it's important to be skeptical. It's important to stop and say, how will this change us? There's so many things that happen in the medical field that we have no idea is happening. And before we know it, it's changed us. I honestly don't even think we can give informed consent anymore because of all of the different technologies that are involved in the system that are not transparent at all and based on biases. Like, you know, in the case of heart information, based on things that happen to 70-year-old plus men, and then they're comparing it to me when I have a problem. So I'm considered an outlier or might not get diagnosed. So I think it's very, very important to be skeptical. In fact, I was just at this think tank in Austria on AI, and one of the people I ended up working with, his intention for the for this think tank was resistance. And I was like, I love this. And he's like, everything I'm doing, I'm thinking about how can we have a human alternative? How can we opt out of AI? And it's like, even though that isn't like the place I come from, I love this view, and I'm hungry to kind of hear more for it. But it's important that it's informed as well. So, where is it important to be resistant and to think twice about integrating things? And where is it just like blind, oh, I'm scared because I don't know it?
I think that's good. Give it up for Amy.